Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Krystle, just in case you were new here, and today I have some fall recommendations for you all. So a few of these books I've recommended in the past if you've been watching my videos for quite some time, and some of them I'm just kind of incorporating that really give me the fall feels. A lot of my reading, I've kind of taken a step back from the horror genre, and I've been reading a little bit of everything lately. And I always think I'm in the mood for something scary, but really I just want something spooky with some fall elements, and also just the atmosphere is everything for me when I read fall books. In the fall, I like to read books that are cozy, spooky, have some thrills to them, and definitely like some horror elements, but also I really love witchy books. I love anything that has to do with the mention of spells and nature during the fall season. So some of these recommendations are along those lines. So let's get into the fall book recommendations. So the first book I'd like to recommend for you is Practical Magic, and this is by Alice Hoffman. I recommend this entire series. I love this series so much. I love following the Owens women through the years and finding out their story and their history. It's just such a beautiful series, and it has a lot to do with women being powerful, and not just in a witchcraft kind of way, but just as women in general, and all the trials and tribulations that women over the history of, I think since the 1600s, this family goes back to what they've been through. So it's just such a beautiful story. This is my leather-bound edition. This is from Easton Press, and I'm obsessed with it. It's actually signed by Alice Hoffman. I just love her books so much. I cherish this one, and I'm looking forward to reading this again this season. I'm going to try. I'm always wanting to reread books, but I just have so many new books on my TBR that it's hard for me to go back. But I just love the series as a whole, so I definitely recommend this entire series for any of the fall feels. I want to say the third book in this series does take place in Salem, Massachusetts during the fall, during the Puritan era, and it does discuss the witch trials as well. So I would recommend reading that. You don't have to read it from the Practical Magic book first. You can kind of swap and read Magic Lessons first, which is the book that does take place in Salem, because that's a prequel to this book. Alice Hoffman wrote this series kind of backwards. Practical Magic kind of takes place more in present day in the 90s, and you have Rules of Magic, which take place in like the early 1900s following the Ants, early to mid 1900s, and then you go back in time to like the 1600s, where Maria Owens and her lineage, how that starts, how the curse starts on the family. You find out all of that background. So you can read that book first if you really wanted to, but you may miss a few things if you read it in, you know, the opposite order. I like how she kind of started with present day and then went back in time, and then the fourth book kind of wraps up and brings us back to present day following one of Sally's daughters. So it's just a beautiful way that she wrote this series and these women, and I just can't wait to revisit the series as a whole. Next I have here The Year of the Witching. This is by Alexis Henderson. This does take place in the Puritan era, during like witch trials, things like that. It's a young adult book, but it has all of the spooky fall feels. You have like the spooky woods and things like that, and it doesn't read as young adults as much as like some other books do. It's definitely higher on the horror side of things as well. So if you're looking for a spooky, witchy read this season, I definitely recommend this book. I read this a couple years ago and I really, really loved it. You may find it in the adult fantasy section in the bookstore, because it does kind of fall on the lines of YA and adults. So I really recommend this book. I love it so much, and anything witchy, like I said, is just what I'm into. Then next I have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I really love this story. This is actually one of the only few books that I have reread in the past. I really love Leigh Bardugo is writing in this, and it does take place in Yale with secret societies, that cozy fall feel, but also with like that spookiness lurking behind. It has to do with, there's ghosts, there's murder, there's just so much that I love in this book. If you're looking for a dark academia, spooky, supernatural type story, this is it. I've definitely seen it all over Book Talk recently, and I'm glad that it's kind of coming back and people are picking up this book again. It was very polarizing when it first came out. A lot of people weren't into it. I don't understand why, especially if you like horror and you like dark academia and you like things with magic. I don't know. I just really think that this book has everything all wrapped into one, and I think she did an excellent job throughout this whole book, and the flow and the pacing of this book was really great. The only problem that I had was the different perspectives. I didn't love how it wasn't separated into chapters, that it was only separated into paragraphs. So a lot of times I was kind of like, who's talking? Whose point of view is this? And then as you continue to read the, you know, the next paragraph or whatever, you just kind of figure it out whose point of view it is. But I wish that was kind of separated more into chapters. This way it was just a little bit more functional, and you didn't feel kind of lost at some points in the story. But overall, this is a great fall read, and it's dark and it's gruesome and it's fun, and I just highly recommend it. The next I have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is one of my favorite reads of all time. It's such a beautiful story, and it is a very fall atmospheric read. V.E. Schwab does an amazing job at writing atmosphere, also in her fantasy books. This book is kind of like a through the years type book. A girl, Addie, she kind of sells her soul to the devil so she can live forever, and on that there's a lot of consequences that she has to face for doing that, for living forever. So it's kind of taking the good with the bad, and because she can live forever, people forget who she is. So anybody she meets, anybody who she comes in contact with, if she leaves their side, they forget her forever. Except for one day when she goes into a bookstore and she robs a book, because anytime she's done that and she's left, nobody remembers that she's done that. So that was her way of getting through life in general without having to get a job anywhere. And she did that, and the boy that worked behind the counter at the bookstore remembers her and chases her down, and she doesn't understand why this man remembers her, and they form this relationship, and it's just such a beautiful story. Very sad, but it just has so many fall elements to it, and if you're looking for a cozy, beautiful read this fall, I highly recommend this book. And I've seen it all over Book Talk as well. I think a lot more people are paying more attention to V.E. Schwab's writing lately, as they should, because she is an amazing author and I love everything that she puts out. Next book that I have is also a first in the series, and that is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This series is so much fun, and especially if you are a fan of Twilight, from back in the day, even to today. I think Twilight's kind of resurfacing to the younger groups of people, but this series is a romance between a witch and a vampire, but they're also on the hunt for a sacred manuscript that holds the truth and the powers behind why vampires exist. And our main character, Diana, she is from a very long line of witches throughout the centuries, and she feels that it is her duty to protect this manuscript from getting into the hands of someone who it could be very detrimental to the world. So they are on the hunt for this manuscript. Her and her friend, future lover, Matthew, they are trying to find this manuscript and get it out of the wrong hands. So it's very thrilling. Some people find it a little boring, but I just really enjoyed this series. I think it's fun, and I love the aspects of the Bodleian Library at Oxford. It has all of those dark academia elements along with a magic system and also romance. So it has a little bit of everything in here that I really enjoy. So I think this is, if I had to wrap up like a perfect genre for me, this is it. I really love it, and I highly recommend it. I have a thriller here, and that is The Death of Mrs Westaway by Ruth Ware. I really enjoyed this book. I think it has the perfect like spooky atmosphere. There's mention of tarot cards in here and fortune telling, and our main character is trying to figure out why she has been left this estate when she's not even related to the person who has left her this estate, but she plays along because she really needs to get her bills paid, and she goes and travels to this estate to find out what's going on and like why she has been called to this estate. But it's really interesting because she plays along so well and acting like she really is the heir to this estate. But there's a lot of things that happen in between the lines there, and it gets pretty spooky. I think this is one of Ruth Ware's best works that I've read from her so far. I think because of the mention of tarot cards and all those like spooky seance-y aspects of this book, I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it, and if you were looking for a thriller this fall season, this is it. I swear, I love it. And it's an older one, but I really enjoy it, and I always think about it, and I may want to pick it up again, but I don't want to go too much into detail about what this is about. But it's very much not talked about, I feel, out of all of her books. Maybe because it has a little bit of like a supernatural feel to it, but I highly recommend it. The next I have here, The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This is a dark academia thriller, and I really enjoyed it. I read it last year around this time, and I thought this was a great book. It also ties in a little bit with The Silent Patient, so if you did read The Silent Patient and you loved it, I feel like you may love this. I wouldn't say it's as thrilling and as surprising as The Silent Patient, but if you're looking for those dark academia themes along with some murder and some thrills, I think this is a great book to look into. It does start off with like a murder, and then everyone has to kind of come together and figure out what is going on and why there's like a secret society, cult type thing amongst the girls at this school, and it's so good. Like, I'm not doing a great job describing what it is, but I'm afraid of like spoiling anything for you. But if you're looking for a dark academia thriller that is very fast paced and a quick read, I highly recommend this one. Then I have two of my favorite books that I usually revisit every spooky season, and that is Ray Bradbury's October Country, and then I have Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury as well. These I recommend pretty often on my channel. I really love these books. They have the perfect fall atmosphere. Ray Bradbury does a great job of writing atmosphere through all of the times of the year, through all of his work. His focus is atmosphere. I swear, I just love it so much. So if you're looking for some spooky, perfect October reads, and you know, you get your pumpkins and you get your cool crisp air, and if it just, you need something to make you just feel cozy and warm inside with a little spook, I really love these books, so highly recommend. And I actually started picking up October Country recently. I've been kind of reading it before I go to bed just to get myself into the fall feels, because it's still like 80 degrees here and all I want is cool fall weather. Next I have two of my favorite authors' books, and then I have here Pet Sematary and Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Now these two are highly recommended on my channel. If you've been watching my channel for a long time, I'm always recommending these for the fall, and that's for great reason, because they are the perfect fall horror books. I love Pet Sematary and I will always cherish this book. It's like my #1 Stephen King book of all time, and then Salem's Lot comes in as a close second. I would say it's like my 1.5 favorite. Like, it's very hard to like pick one, but this just has such great atmosphere, and it's spooky, and it's about vampires taking over a town, and it's just so perfect. It's literally a perfect read from beginning to end, and I just love it so much. And Pet Sematary, its main focus is on grief, but the horror elements is just unbelievable. How Stephen King wrote this book, I don't even know how he did it emotionally, because it's just such an emotional read, and because he was a new parent at the time when he did write it, I don't know how he got through it, but he did. He put all of his worst fears on paper and wrote this amazing novel, and I highly recommend this for spooky season. If you haven't read it yet, I don't know what you're doing. If you're looking for the perfect horror book for September, October, I mean, whenever, just pick this up. It's so good. Lastly, I have an author I would love to talk about, and that is Darcy Coats. This is The Haunting of Rookwood House. This is like the only one that I own right now because a lot of her books are free on Kindle Unlimited, but I love Darcy Coats. I think she writes horror and the supernatural so well. Her books are like candy. You just fly through them. They're always great. I think that's just my personal opinion. They are somewhat formulaic, so they're similar to like a lot of romance novels out there, but this is like the horror version of like Nora Roberts, if you get what I'm saying. But I just love these books, and I believe she just came out with a few new books in like a matter of months. I saw some short story collection that came out, and I also saw Grave House, something like that. I'm gonna pick it up though. I'm gonna pick that one, the newest release up. I think it came out this week at some point, but all of her books are excellent. So if you're looking for a spooky, supernatural, like horror-based read that are very easy to read, definitely pick it up. Any of her books are great. The Haunting of Ashford House really got me. The ghost in there is very scary. And yeah, so like if you're looking for quick books to read for a readathon or whatever, they're all free on Kindle Unlimited. And if you feel like purchasing copies, they have them at like all Barnes & Nobles and Amazon and all of those places that usually have books, obviously. But I definitely recommend her books for the fall season. They're just so good and they're just easy to read. That is it for my fall recommendations. I tried to not repeat myself in this video, and then I realized I don't have that many recommendations for fall. I don't know why. It's my favorite time of year, but I also think I just watch a lot of movies this time of year, and I just like to read like atmospheric books, so I kind of go back to books that I've already read in the past. If you have any fall recommendations for me that I haven't mentioned in this video, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you're new here, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here. I'm hoping to have a little bit more content coming out this fall. I would love to do a library tour for you guys since I have a new library, and I have a lot of other things planned as well. On that note, it was great talking with you guys today, and I hope you like these recommendations, and I'll be talking to you guys soon. Bye!